but sometimes I'm watching a movie and I'm thinking about a book that I read that was very similar or even better. I tried to pick like popular and recent movies, but I could do multiple parts if anyone interested with like lesser known movies and such, especially if you're a cinephile, if you're into movies but you want to start reading. I think reading books that might have similar aspects of your favorite film would make it easier to get into reading. I made up a list of 10 books. Now, before I start telling you about any of them, I want to mention that these are in no shape or form the exact same thing as the movie. I don't think that's possible, so I tried to just take some aspects of those movies and maybe like my own personal favorite aspects of those movies and find those again in books. Let's get started. Please, if you have any recommendations for me, leave them in the comments. The first book I want to recommend to you is, if you have watched A Real Pain, it would be a real pain if you hadn't read this book yet. A Real Pain follows these two cousins who travel to Poland to learn more about their family history, learn to love each other again, because they used to be very close. Second I started to play this movie, I immediately knew what book this reminded me of: Catch the Rabbit. And if you know nothing about Catch the Rabbit, this is a road trip book, which I thought was very fitting. And it's not only a road trip book, it's also a book about the after effects of war, what it's like growing up in a country that has been through a lot. And obviously in A Real Pain, they travel to Poland. There is a very heavy cloud over the entire movie because of the history in Poland. It was wonderfully done in A Real Pain, and I think this movie and I think this book comes really close to that. This plays in Bosnia, and it follows these two friends who were super close growing up, but then one of them moved away to Dublin, and so 12 years later the friend that still lives in Bosnia invites her to help her look for her brother. It has that same feeling of rekindling platonic love for one another. Like deep down you know you still love that person a lot, but a lot has happened, you have changed, circumstances are different. It's a road trip novel, like I said, and it had that very much that same feeling. Like in A Real Pain, you could see yourself in both of the main characters, and this has that as well, just in the female version. Now the next, I've seen a few people on TikTok talk about, but I thought I'd mention it anyway, because I'm just obsessed with both of these projects. As of recent events, Robert Eggers all over the news because he made an amazing adaptation of Nosferatu, and one of my favorite Robert Eggers movies is The Witch. Like I said, people on TikTok have mentioned this, but The Witch obviously follows this very poor family who try to make their ends meet, and then a lot of things start happening. There's things coming out of the wood. You don't know if it's paranormal, if it's like maybe a demon, it's a witch, you don't know. And I also would love Robert Eggers to make this book into a movie. And this is Slewfoot by Bron. I read and watched these pretty close to each other, so immediately my head went back to when I watched the movie. And I think Robert Eggers would do a brilliant job with this. Like, I can see the visuals already. It dives a bit deeper into the witchy and ritualistic sorts that the movie only hints at. It's a very powerful story focused on Abatha, who loses everything she has, turns to the woods to regain her power, and it's a beautiful story, very creepy and eerie. Yeah, I think generally this is very similar to the Robert Eggers movie The Witch. Robert Eggers, you must make this into a movie. Thank you very much. Now, the next movie has been discussed a lot in media, and it's The Substance. And for this book, it might even be messier than the movie was. And this is specifically if you liked the critique, I would say, to the beauty industry, the lengths that people would go to become their best self, their ageless self. This book does that brilliantly. It's really weird. When I finished reading it, I was like, what the hell did I just read, but in the best way possible? Rouge by Mona Awad, the queen of weird girl literature. This is about the beauty industry and a very culty take on the beauty industry, which I think The Substance, come on, it's The Substance. This also deals a lot with grief and mother issues and just how insane the beauty industry can be and how dangerous. Maybe not as graphic, if I remember. I read this a while ago, but I think it wasn't as graphic as The Substance. If you're a big fan of The Substance, I think you'll eat this up. The next movie I literally just finished watching last night, and it might be one of my favorites from this year, and it's Anora. I did not think I'd love it as much as I did. And I know there's some controversies surrounding this movie. The book that I'm about to recommend to you is maybe not as similar as to Nora, but I think it has the same qualities as like the messiness, weird things that happen when you involve yourself with rich people and mingle in between the rich people, even though you're really not supposed to be there. And that is The Guest by Emma Cline. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the main character is similar to Anora, because Anora is just beautiful and I like her a lot. I don't think she can do wrong. And this main character, however, is a very morally grey character. She's like very annoying. She just keeps making mistakes over and over again, and that's the messy part I was talking about. She just gets involved in a lot of messy rich people business and is a lot of places where she's not supposed to be. If you like the drama and the messiness of Nora, this is a book for you. And Emma Cline's writing is just brilliant. I'll have another recommendation in this video of hers. The next movie I really wanted to put in there because I've read quite a few books that have the similar feel as Call Me By Your Name, and it's one of my favorite movies, and I prefer the movie. Visually, obviously I love the movie a lot. I love the book, but I'm not going to recommend you just the book because that would be very unnecessary. But the book that I am going to recommend to you is Lie With Me by Philip Besson. I love this book a lot. It made me weep. If you like the vibes of Call Me By Name, the way that it was set in northern Italy, this is set in the south of France. It has that same feel to it, like the small town that you can't escape. Everything's sticky and sweaty, and it's obviously a gay coming of age story and a romance dealing with the time being and being gay in that time. I think it is a lot more emotional than Call Me By Your Name is. I love Call Me By Your Name, don't get me wrong, and I did cry while reading, but this is just more emotional. It's more heartbreaking, dare I say, and it just really has that same summery feel to it, and it's amazing storytelling. It's a very quick read, so give it a try. If you don't like it, I don't know, God help us all. Why did I say that? Now, the next movie is one I really love, and it's Jennifer's Body. If you don't know anything about Jennifer's Body, it stars Megan Fox, obviously. Jennifer gets sacrificed by this band, and she becomes a monster, and I think personally it very much reflects on how the boys treated her, and she gets her revenge on them all, on everyone in her town. And I honestly love that for her. And it also has a little bit of will they, won't they, lesbians, very queer coded, and a book I think that has a lot of those same qualities is Boy Parts by Eliza Clark. And don't get me wrong, this main character does not get turned into a monster, but maybe she becomes one in the sense that she crosses a lot of moral lines and pushes the boundaries of what is okay. And she does that by taking pornographic photos of young men, and she just starts getting more and more brutal with them. And she also has a best friend that she treats horribly, just as Jennifer does with Needy, and they should have just kissed and made out and everything would have been fine. But yeah, she's very obsessive. Female revenge part is very much in this book, like it is in Jennifer's Body. Yeah, just if you like little, they should maybe be locked up, insane girly pops, but you understand where they're coming from because they've been through a whole lot. Jennifer's Body and Body Parts does that very well. Now, the next movie might not be a very recently popular movie, but it's one of my favorites, and I thought I'd maybe sprinkle some gothic literature in here, and it's Crimson Peak. If you like the paranormal aspects of Crimson Peak and the gothic setting, let me introduce you to My Darling Dreadful Thing by Johanna Van Veen. And this novel follows this girl who can commune with the dead, and she has this spiritual companion. Story-wise, it's not very similar to Crimson Peak at all, but it does have that paranormal aspect, obviously, and it's very, very gothic. There's that very big moment, as it is in Crimson Peak, if it's like, will they make it out? And this book has that as well. And like I said, obviously the point of the whole fucking video, if you liked Crimson Peak, read this book. How many times have I said that so far? I do not know. The next movie is Midsommar, and I think there's a lot of books that have been recommended for Midsommar. I'm thinking I've seen TikToks with Bunny in it, and while yes, the cult aspect is there, I think the next book that I'm going to show you fits it a little bit more, maybe, because it deals with the cult in the moment, and I think the cult in this book has more similarities to Midsommar than maybe Bunny would have. The book is The Girls by Emma Cline. Just like Danny in Midsommar, I think her name is Danny, right? Just like Danny in Midsommar, the main character in this book accidentally joins a cult and thinks it's the most wonderful thing in the world, and maybe it's not, maybe it isn't. And she also accidentally joins this cult because of someone, and I think that's kind of similar to what happened in Midsommar as well. Although this is similar cult-wise to Midsommar, it's realer. It doesn't have any paranormal aspects to it. I think this is closer to like in real life cults and weird male cult leaders and the way they abuse and use young girls. The next movie I know a lot of people didn't like, but if you're one of those people who liked it but would have preferred a little bit of something else, this is my recommendation for you. The movie I'm talking about is My Policeman, and yes, this is a book, but I think there are some aspects that could have been done better, and one of those is that I really hated how they treated the female character in My Policeman. Well, I ended up hating her in the book, and while I think in this story this makes sense, I think in general there doesn't have to be a mean and morally just dumb girl in between two boys to fall in love. And this is why I love Tin Man so much. I don't have the copy with me right now, but Tin Man felt, at least to me, very similar to the story in My Policeman. However, the female character just wasn't a bitch. I think there's nothing else to say to that. It's just as emotional as My Policeman. It deals with the same issues and problems with being gay in a certain time. Just the female character is written a lot better, I personally say. My last recommendation, and this is a recommendation I am not too sure of, but I'll share it with you anyway, because I do think there are some aspects that match with this, that go alongside these two forms of media. However, I wish there were more movies in this sort of category. The movie that I'm talking about is Knives Out, and Knives Out is a crime drama, whatever. It's a whodunit story. Who killed the man of the house is what Knives Out is about. And it has that very dark academia feel to it. It's set in this beautiful, gorgeous house that I so desperately want to live in. While the story is very different, the book that I'm about to show you is, in a sense, a whodunit story, and it definitely has a dark academia setting to it. It's literally one of the dark academia novels. But if you want to get into reading and like the dark academia setting of Knives Out a lot, or it's also very reminiscent of maybe the start of Saltburn, the setting of the holdovers, the academia vibes, the Dead Poet Society, but make it a crime drama, literally drama, because the students in this book study drama, specifically Shakespeare. It's Irrelevance by Emma Rio, and maybe I just wanted to so desperately put this book in here because it's my favorite book. Like I said, it doesn't have a lot of similarities to Knives Out, except of course for the solving the murder of one of the main characters. It's just a really brilliant book. It has a lot more depth to it and a lot of more love and emotion and chaos. And this is my recommendations, and those are all of them. Also, let me know if you want to see another part of this, because I have many more. I also have ideas for if you didn't like this movie or if you didn't like this book, you should read or watch this. Because sometimes the premise of something is really good and this turns out to be shite. Please recommend me some books and see you soon.